I'm in love with the South. So I've decided to spend the next 7 weeks leaving Bluff and doing a massive circumnavigation of the South Island.
In this episode, I'm heading inland slowly, up the Hollyfoot, down to Lake Wakatipu and across to Wanaka.
This is South.
I've often thought the stories of the south of New Zealand are not as celebrated or as well known as they should be. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. But several years ago I read this book, The Pioneers of Martins Bay, by Alice Mackenzie. It's her in her 70s reminiscing about her family's time here at Martins Bay when she was just a child in the 1870s. The book is a knockout. It's an absolute pot boiler, and it made me realise that New Zealand's colonial history, our story of the first European settlers and the trials and the challenges they faced is as exciting, as dangerous and just as compelling as any colonial history anywhere. And that, for me, was the real motivation to make this TV series. To discover the beginnings of Alice Mackenzie's incredible story, I'm taking a short boat ride from Martins Bay up the lower Hollyfoot River to the shores of Lake Makero. In 1868, James McAndrew, the superintendent of Otago, decided to develop a port at Martins Bay because of its closeness to Australia. He also promised a road from here to Queenstown, which was plainly ridiculous and still hasn't happened. The new town of the port was to be called Jamestown, after himself, because in those days people were vain, vainer than now. Bard Crawford has been guiding and telling the stories of Jamestown for 9 years. So what, they surveyed it for how many people were supposed to move here?
Well, there's about 100 odd sections were surveyed in the area, roughly in the area that we're standing in. There was also big 50-acre lots further down near the coastline. But in this immediate vicinity, in this little Half Moon Bay here, there was only around about 100 odd sections. In fact, you're standing on Lake Street, I think it is.
And there are plenty of takers. I mean, they got people fizzing for it. They hyped it up.
Oh yeah, it was the promised land. Promised land. Oh, it's really no different to the modern subdivisions, is it? It must have been election year too. They called a guy called Robert Percy Whitworth, who was a journalist. He wrote an article about Jamestown, and good marketing. He wrote that Jamestown had flat arable land as far as the eye could see. It'd be soon dotted and smiling homesteads, so the settlers were quite excited. They were so confident they could make it work too. The settlers brought women and kids with them on the first boat, which is unusual, you know. Normally the men would come in and break the land first.
Life was tough, the harbour was a disaster. The first boat was wrecked on the Hollyfoot Bar and the settlers lost all their possessions, and a third of the following boats followed suit. The future was looking grim.
The government steamers were supposed to call in at least once every 3 months, but often the swell conditions, you know, on the west coast were too rough. So basically just toot the horn and carry on. The poor old settlers would be stranded out on the beach, wave goodbye to the boat, and that was it. So, you know, they go 6, sometimes 9 months without supplies.
It is a shame of the government to induce people to come and settle down here where there is no communication with other places, either by sea or land. If no vessel arrives here within 10 days from this date, it will be a case of starvation with us all.
1870, the first real wave of settlers arrived. By 1879, it was reported that it was completely deserted. By 1879, it was a flash in the pan.
As most of the settlers at Jamestown drifted away, a handful of families drifted down the Hollyfoot to establish farms at Martins Bay. Among them were Daniel and Margaret Mackenzie, whose daughter Alice would go on to write The Pioneers of Martins Bay about the 20 years she was to spend there. And you read the book and it's all about hardship and stuff, but it probably wasn't like that, was it? I mean, probably an idyllic place, really.
Yeah, a few of the other settlers struggled, but I think the Mackenzies actually did all right. I mean, they all lived. A lot died out here, but Mackenzie survived.
What do you think of the Moa sighting?
I think it happened.
You do?
I believe it.
You see, when Alice Mackenzie was little, she reckons she saw a moa standing on the beach in Martins Bay. And if she did, she would be the only European to have seen a moa, long after they were thought to be extinct.
So they would have been right up this valley.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a giant moa was recently, well, the remains of one recently found in Hollyford Valley at the top end.
In hindsight, it was more likely that what she saw was a takahe, remembering in 1948 the takahe itself was rediscovered.
Southland's big enough, and there's a variety enough of different places to go, to get remote, to just live a different life and to get away from it all. And there's still people doing that, and there's still places where you can go to where the history is still there. The people that have created history, their sons, daughters, grandchildren will still talk about it. So the history's only a generation away, whereas for me in the North Island it felt much, much, much more remote. But here it's still happening. Here it feels as though you are actually involved with the history.
Now, when you're in Southland, there's one name you hear time and time again to illustrate examples of self-reliance and Kiwi hardness, and that name is Davy Gunn of the Hollyford. And where better to learn about him than the campground named after him, Gunn's Camp, which has been set up on one of his original campsites. For 30 years, Davy Gunn farmed one of the most isolated cattle runs in New Zealand, and as a pioneering tourist operator, he became a legend in the area. Julia Bradshaw became aware of Davy's story while she worked as a guide on the Hollyford Track. She found him so compelling, she spent 4 years writing the story of New Zealand's tough cowboy hero.
How tough?
Well, I think it's really tough. I think most people in Southland know the scrotum story.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody can sew up their own scrotum and then get back on a horse and carry on riding, I think that's pretty tough.
Davy heard the call of the wild and answered, leaving his wife and children in Oamaru in 1926 to live a tough and solitary life in the wilds of Fiordland. He was devoted to the virtually impossible task of mustering his herds twice a year through the valleys of the Hollyford.
Driving cows for Davy Gunn, riding where it's free.
He wanted to share the land he loved so much with others, to open up the Hollyford to tourism, leading walking and horse riding trips. He came to public attention for his heroic actions after a plane crash at Big Bay in 1936.
He was taking a party of trampers from here through to Big Bay, and one of the trampers was due to fly out on the plane, and they saw the plane disappear and they thought something had happened, so they raced out and saw that it crashed into the surf.
One passenger was dead and another had a fractured skull and pelvis, 90 kilometres away from help. Davy knew there was no time to waste. Someone had to raise the alarm or no one would know there had been an accident.
So there's no communication there?
No, there's no communication, there's no radio. The nearest point of contact with the outside world is just further up the road from here at Marion Corner, where there was a Public Works Department phone.
What Davy did was superhuman and extraordinary. He ran from Big Bay to Martins Bay, then he got into a dinghy at 2:30 in the morning and he rowed for 15 k's into a headwind with a broken rib. He then stopped, had breakfast, and some trampers said he looked white, wearied and worried. He was only halfway there. He then got on a horse and rode for 40 k's through thick bush to where he knew there was a phone. He arrived there at 3:30 in the afternoon and he phoned for help.
How long would that journey take, an ordinary man?
I mean, and you could do it in 3 days, but most people would take 4 to 5 days to do it. Yeah, it's 90 kilometres.
Wow, and it took him 20 hours. So as a result of his action, the lives were saved. The woman with the cracked skull, she was...
She survived, yes. Yes, so she may not have survived another night without medical attention.
The people of Southland soon heard of the heroic rescue and £73 was raised to erect a permanent monument to Davy's heroics. In May 1937, he was awarded the King's Coronation Medal.
I suppose, too, he's sort of the real deal that people like Barry Crump wrote about or thought they probably were, the hard Kiwi man alone. He really was it.
You have to be incredibly tough to stay in here full time, you know, like 30 years in an environment like this. You get a lot of flooding here, you get torrential rain, you know, there's lots of trials.
Tell me about the circumstances of him dying.
Well, it's Christmas Day and he was travelling down the river on a horse with some other musterers, crossing a river, a ford that he'd crossed hundreds of times. The sad part was that he had a 12-year-old boy, family friend, on the back of the horse with him. The horse stumbled. It was apparently a stumbly horse, and they were both thrown off into the water and they both drowned. Warren Shaw's body was eventually found several days later with great difficulty, and Davey's body was never found.
It adds to the legend, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and in a way it's quite fitting because he wouldn't have wanted to be buried in Oamaru or Waimate. He's still here in a way somewhere.
And I do want to say too, people like Davey Gunn and the pioneers of Martins Bay, I reckon in Southland that spirit's still here. People are still like that. People doing great things but not shouting about it. Still rivers run deep, it's like that in Southland. People do great things and just for their own rewards and stay quiet on it. And that's what I've really liked about the people I've met coming up to here. But Davey Gunn, just to go out to get gorged by a bull and sew up your own nutsack and then carry on, you know. A 5'7" little guy, but nuggety.
Following Davey Gunn's mustering route, I head down the Capels River. This is really exciting. I feel like I've crossed the Southern Alps and now I'm in central Otago and Lake Wakatipu, so a whole different province and a whole different set of sceneries and, yeah, a different feel. Ah, yes, and my first sight of the lake.
Yo, the first white folk to see Lake Wakatipu lit their pipe and sat back to admire the view. But unfortunately, threw their match to the ground, which was dry. Next thing, there was fire all round. So they jumped into the lake to escape the flames, and the bush quails had to do the same. But unfortunately, they couldn't swim.
I'm a big fan of an island and a lake, so I'm heading to Pigeon Island with Sam DeReaper, my kayak guide. I've been wondering since I was going to come here, Sam. I thought Pigeon Island, shaped like a pigeon, not really. Why is it called Pigeon Island?
No, the island there's a wee bit warmer than everywhere else. So the type of forest we get on there is a wee bit different to the surrounding area. So this is where we get all the conifers, big kahikatea and totara, and these produce lots of berries. Of course, when the first pioneers came through here, when they came onto the island there were pigeons in their thousands. Not quite the same forest cover as they used to have.
Yeah.
So they're a bit more seasonal these days.
Have you checked out? There's no one staying there?
Yeah, I had a look last night.
No one there?
Nah.
Good. That's quite important for me.
You want the place to yourself.
Well, you know, no man's an island, but I want to be on one on my own. But it's...
Well, if push comes to shove,
We'll kill him.
yeah, well, there's that too, yeah.
Weirdly enough, for me, it's always been a real dream to stay on an island within an island, or by that I mean an island in a freshwater lake. And this isn't just TV talk, this is something that I've always had an absolute desire to do it, and I've done it, and it's been absolutely perfect. There's something quite magical about being on an island within a lake. I don't know, there's something very contained, no one else is around, you're very man alone.
Set on a mountain.
The whole experience has been a revelation. Do it. It's very, very good. Can't say why, just do it. It's very, very good. Pigeon Island, Lake Wakatipu, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
A short paddle across Lake Wakatipu from the magic of Pigeon Island brings me to Glenorchy, but I'm skipping the township and heading for the hills. Farming and tourism are the mainstay of Glenorchy's rugged hill country, but in the 1880s a big money spinner came from mining in the clouds. These hills were rich in scheelite.
Well, it started off with my grandfather back in the 1890s. He dabbled in the scheelite mining across in Long Gully, and my father followed, and his whole life was scheelite mining, and his life was spent in these hills.
Just tell me a bit about what scheelite was used for.
75% of the scheelite would actually be the element tungsten. The uses of it, of course, with hardening steel was the most accepted thing. And of course, in war times, the tips of bullets hardened with tungsten could penetrate other steel. So it had a multitude of uses during war years, and that's when the value, of course, skyrocketed. Sort of overnight, a whole village of huts and small houses appeared during the Second World War, and that was from a telegram from a lad called Winston Churchill.
During World War II, scheelite became so important to Britain and her allies that the New Zealand government bought two of the main mines in Glenorchy, and miners came from all over the country. Life for the miners was tough. They were away from their families months at a time, working hard at high altitudes.
Did they get wealthy?
They get
Wealthy?
wealthy. When they were on good stone, good ore, they were sort of king of the mountains.
Yeah.
But I know my own family on one occasion, 12 months they laboured away up the East Valley and they didn't mine one single ounce or gram of scheelite, but they never starved.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing I think about the scheelite miners. You ask what were their rewards. Their rewards were enough to keep themselves and their family comfortable.
I must have been exciting as a child being up here.
It was a wonderful life, yeah. I always liked to have a break in the hut, for example, here. There was always a pride and joy was to get hold of a can of sweetened condensed milk. And a spoon was all right, but your finger was better. And I suppose that was our chocolate or our sweets. I was getting into a can of sweetened condensed milk. If you ate it all, you'd get your backside kicked. Just to remind yourself that you had to think of others.
Now, obviously, as the sign says, this is Glenorchy, small town at the head of Lake Wakatipu. And observant viewers will think, aha, looks like a railway shed close. The railway didn't, gosh, it feels like another TV series. The railway didn't come this far, but the coal-powered lake steamer, the Earnslaw, came this far and was operated by the New Zealand Railways. So yes, in fact, that is a New Zealand Railway shed. That's not the original. The original faced the other way. That's a recreation made by the locals after the other one was washed out into the lake in a flood. Glenorchy, lovely place. I'm amazed to be here because it does feel like it's something that's not mechanical. It feels like it's an animal or something. It's like it's alive.
It is like it's alive, yeah. They're living, breathing things, really, aren't they?
So you get hooked on it?
Yeah, I've been hooked on it since I was young. Just, something about them. Yeah.
So how long you worked on this one?
About 4 years on this one.
Okay. And you'll be here for life?
Oh, we'll see what happens, yeah.
But you worked pretty hard the whole time?
Oh, reasonably, yeah. Once we put a stoke on, probably about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 between.
I'm too scared to move. This is wild. Can you imagine what this is like going up to Glenorchy in the old days with a high sea? Because I said it got really rough. And you're in here with a 3 metre, 4 metre swell on. I think the Titanic was like this too before that went down. There, the water's coming up. Oh, and actually we're below sea level here.
We are.
The sea's out there.
Yep.
You wouldn't want to be on one when it's sinking, would you?
No, not really. Let's hope this old girl doesn't sink, you know.
Yeah. She'll go forever though, the Earnslaw, the way it's maintained.
The way it's maintained.
It'll go forever.
Yeah, but our engineers do a brilliant job of keeping it maintained.
And you don't appreciate it when you're on it. The tourists are just having chips and drinking, but actually it's here that's the real pleasure of it, eh?
That's right, yeah.
Smoke all right?
Smoke's fine, yeah, that's not too bad. At the moment it's burning away quite nicely.
I'm in Queenstown, on the shores of Lake Wakatipu. I like the fact that it's still got a Māori name. I mean, they're few and far between in this part of the country. As far as Queenstown goes, well, it's a town I've struggled with in the past, but I think it's a town that's become a lot better. There's a lot less of those bandana boars, those American extreme sport people that used to come here and bore your senses with their tales of extreme feats, and now it's more full of families just enjoying themselves, having a happy time. And I think that's a good thing. And after years of experience, I have found the best way to arrive in Queenstown is the riparian route via the river.
And then to leave quickly as possible.
And this has got to be one of my all-time favourite stories of Queenstown, and a story I've just only recently learned. I'm right here at the bottom of Lake Wakatipu, where the Kawarau River flows right down into the Clutha. Now, of course, in the 1800s, they got a lot of gold out of the Clutha River, but come about 1920, some entrepreneurs thought that the river bed must just be covered in gold, if only they could dam the river. And that's what they attempted to do. They went to Dunedin, they raised a whole lot of money, and they thought, okay, we'll dam the river and people can go in there with their spades and shovels and just gather gold to their heart delight. So that's what they did. They built this dam, they spent millions of dollars of it, and they sold the rights to the riverbed for what would be millions of dollars now. In fact, they were so confident of the success, they even had a specially built I think it was a stagecoach, a Cobb & Co stagecoach with armour plating and armed guard to take all the gold packed to Dunedin to put in the vault. So the fateful day arrived and they lowered the dams, and of course the whole scheme didn't work. It's not that easy to dam a fast-flowing river. So they never even got a dry riverbed, so millions of dollars were lost on this scheme that was both greedy and foolhardy, which is telling and knowing, but still in Queenstown, those two values, greed and foolhardiness, are still not unknown around these parts. It is a boom or bust town. Amazing story. Well, this is one of my favourite roads, I think, in New Zealand, the Crown Range between Queenstown and Wanaka. I just absolutely love it. And actually, for me, it was a fairly good brief visit to Queenstown. And may I just say, all through Southland and now in Otago, every cafe, every hut in the wilderness, I see no young New Zealanders, or virtually no young New Zealanders, which really surprises me. I find that really weird. All our young people, I'm generalising of course, that's my stock in trade, but so many of New Zealand's young people head off to England or Berlin, yet you go to the bottom of New Zealand and everyone here is from England or Berlin or Germany or Portugal or Ireland or Scotland. It seems as though we're all in the wrong country. The Europeans all want to be here and the Kiwis all want to be in Europe. So it's kind of that restlessness for everyone. No one's where they want to be. I can't quite work it out. The highlight for me has been the island within the island, and now I'm off to an island within an island within an island. And I've got the terrible situation. I've got to go to the island within the island, but I'm not really a swimmer. I'm sure I will cope, because I'm a coper. And this is where I've ended up, on this amazing island, which is unnamed, which is in Lake Arethusa, which is on an island called Mauahu, which is in a lake, Lake Wanaka, which is on the South Island. So it's an island within a lake, within an island, within a lake, within an island, within an ocean, which I never even knew existed. So it's been amazing for me. And what is also incredible is I've just come probably only 100 k's from Martins Bay to here, but through so many different varieties of scenery and of history. And what have I learned? Well, I always thought the golden rule of travel was never go back. But what I've learnt with this trip is always go back, because going back to places I've been before, I've seen them differently. And what I've realised, of course, is that those places haven't changed, but I've changed. And isn't that incredible and rewarding to realise that as we grow older, as people, we change and we see things differently. And there's something quite rewarding and redemptive about that.